Are you? My hair is interesting today. It's almost like it's reacting to the season change. Also, this is looking a bit permy on this side. Do you remember the 90s? We used to mousse it up so good. Okay, it's November tomorrow, and I wanted to share a little bit of my year so far. Don't worry, I'm not going to take you through month by month, day by day, because who, quite frankly, has got time for that? But I have done 3 things this year that are not impressive to Instagram, that almost like nobody would know from the outset. And I think sometimes when we transform, when we change, when we shift, it's sometimes not for the gram, believe it or not. It's not noticeable or external to anybody else. It's the inner work. And the inner work and the grind and the resilience and all of the things require something else of you. So at the beginning of this year, January 2023, I decided that I was going to be bold. I was going to be braver. And I think the temptation at the beginning of any year, at the beginning of any month, we can write down goals that are easy to tick off. Oh. The throat chakra is opening up here. We can write things down that are easy to tick off. For example, I want to go here, or I want to buy this thing, or I want to fit into those trousers, or I want to go and see this theatre show, or whatever it might be. It's really easy to write those things that involve like booking a ticket or earning a certain amount of money. And this year for me was slightly different because it was about being and how I was going to operate. And it honestly felt like I needed a software upgrade. And this is the difficult thing with a software upgrade. You think it's going to be fun. You think it's going to be straightforward. You think that it's just going to be a joyous experience. You think it's going to be quick as well. I'm just going to download that software now because I'm due an upgrade. And yes, you might experience some speed. You might experience some dopamine through this process of like, oh my gosh, I've done it. It's happening. Everything seems to be clicking into place. However, there's an underlying thing, which is like the spinning wheel of doom where you're like, oh no, now this bit of and again, to go back to the life, it's like, oh no, this bit feels really clunky now. This bit feels, it doesn't work as well anymore. Oh no, do I need to go back? Do I need to go back and downgrade to the previous software? And that transition moment from where you are right now to stepping into who you want to be, even though people on the internet, and I'm not in this situation, will tell us, just decide and everything will fall into place. The universe will meet you once you've made that decision. But it's constantly showing up. It's constantly bedding something in. I don't really like talking about my children too much at the moment because, well, I do in other lives, but not on the internet. But one of the things that I'm going to give you as a kind of roundabout topic that we're all working on in this house, well, not the adults, because hopefully we can do that, is listening. So you know the scenario with your child where you might have to tell them several times. And sometimes you think, I've definitely told them, like they understand this now, surely they've got it. And yet for days afterwards, they're still doing the same thing. You're still reminding them. And for me, one of my massive bugbears is that feeling of being misunderstood, because I've felt like that in a lot of my life. And it's a really horrible place for me to be in. And I always feel that it gives me that sort of, you can feel it as I'm talking to you. It gives me a real sort of like claustrophobic feeling. And I don't like feeling like that. But your children, or sometimes those around you, can equally show you a new way of learning. And like with the listening thing, I've realized in myself that I have to be compassionate with myself, because I don't know about you, my friend, but there have been some lessons over the years that I have had to learn a few times. They've come back around to teach me that lesson, and they've come in a different outfit. And at first you think it's a new lesson, but when you peel back maybe a layer and you only need to do one, you're like, it's the same lesson. Hello. It's the same lesson. I thought I had done this. I thought I ticked it off. I thought I had a gold star. And now you're back. Now you are back again. So at the beginning of this year, I knew I had to be really patient with myself. I knew it was going to take some time to embody. Also, I didn't know how it was going to look and feel, because, one minute, just stay there a sec. I've just got to check a pan. One sec. Will you hang there? One sec. I'm coming. I'm running up the stairs. I'm coming. I just had to do that. Did anybody else have a paranoid mum who was like, don't do anything, the house is going to burn down? Anyway, that was me. It's fine. It's fine. Anyway, I just heard a noise, and you know when you get a bit like, oh, I hope that isn't what I think it is. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine. So going back to the lessons, I quickly realised that it was going to take some time to bed in. And the excitement was great, but it was only going to get me so far. And then I had an epiphany of, to give you another analogy, when somebody buys a house, and this is more like if it's a renovation project, you might look at it on first glance and you might be like, I think it's going to be all right. I think it's just the kitchen and bathrooms that we need to do. Or I think it's just a bit of, you know, maintenance, structural maintenance. And we've seen those programs, haven't we? When they start to pull back the layers and they're like, no, it's not what you thought. You need a new roof. The whole place needs rewiring. Actually, this wall over here and these electrics are really dangerous. And so what happens is, not that I had any kind of danger parts, but I realised upon committing to this year that it was maybe not going to be straightforward. I wasn't just going to kind of like dance into the year like, oh my goodness, I'm moving and changing and da 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 da. No, my friends. Literally every area of my life I had to like lift it up, and it was heavy lifting. And to give you another analogy of, it was almost like a garden that you can keep sticking some pretty pots in, like, oh, I'm going to put a hammock over there by those trees. But there are some projects sometimes where you have to pull up the weeds, and you have to get the wheelbarrow out, and you have to start putting your back into it and really looking and really feeling and really analysing and deciding what needs to go. And there have been many parts, I would say, not even kind of practical parts of my life, like I haven't broken up with anybody or a friend or said that's it or had an argument or anything like that. it's mainly been an internal shift of thoughts, feelings, patterns, behaviors, limiting beliefs, that it was time for them to go. Because quite frankly, they weren't serving a purpose, and they were outdated, and they were old-fashioned in the way that technology sometimes is. That even if you took that, I don't know, videotape from 1985, would it actually work if you, I don't have a video recorder, but if you put it in, would it actually still work? Or will it do that kind of thing? So these thoughts, feelings, limiting beliefs, patterns of behavior weren't serving me because they didn't work anymore. And they didn't work with my roles and my responsibilities and me as a nearly 42-year-old woman. I'm 42 next week, and yet there were some limiting beliefs that were 30 years old running the show. Not all the time, but they were there. They were there in the background, like almost like, you know, like they probably would have been back in the day. You know, sniggers and threats and like nudges, whispering. That was the kind of vibe of them. And I had to have a serious word with myself. And I guess this is why I'm sharing this. Because it got to a point where these thoughts, feelings, patterns of behavior that were so old and outdated were not only not serving me, but they were getting in the way. And I could choose to hold on to them because they were familiar, or I could choose to let them go. And what I want to share with you today is that it is all a process. And I know we all want quick fixes. I know that. I know that that is much sexier and exciting and will get you more likes on the internet. But most things take time. Most things take commitment and effort and focus. And I think about that, again, I'm not going to go into it too much, but I think about that in terms of my relationship. You know, it's nearly 17 years old. And believe it or not, it's not the same relationship that we were having when I was 25. He was 26, by the way. I'm not saying he was like, and he was 60. No, I was 25 and he was 26. But we were in a different age and stage of life at that time. So I've got 3 things. There are other things that I've done, but I just wanted to give you some things to play around with. And if you're thinking like, yeah, well, January, that was a long time ago and it's nearly Christmas now, so I'll do this next year. I encourage you to get ahead of all of the stuff in your head, because it will lurk around for way too long, and maybe it's time to be in conversation with it again and encourage it politely but firmly to leave. Okay, so the first thing that I really noticed this year was the nature of the beast of like running my own gig. I've always had to be very clear about, I guess, what my skill set is. And I'm always encouraging this in terms of my clients. Like, what's your skill set? Where do you excel? How can you bring value? What do you offer? How can you work with your own circumstances? All of that. And I've always been an advocate for that in terms of my own work, because I've had a personal brand for 20 years. So I have to always be my own advocate. However, this year, I decided to ask myself the opposite question, which was, and it was a slightly like, come on now, like that doesn't impress me, but where are your gaps? And instead of focusing on my skill set, which essentially has changed and developed and enhanced and elevated, but I haven't suddenly become like an excellent scientist. Like, it's all the same things that I've been doing for 20 years. This is when our street should be a one-way street, but it's not. And now people are going to fight and get cross. Anyway, but this year, I took on that approach of saying, okay, so I know what my good things are, but where are my gaps? Where do I get stuck? Where do I repeat myself? Where do I get myself into sticky situations? Where do I need help? Where do I need support? What am I not seeing? And it felt very confronting at times. It felt very ugly. It felt gnarly. It felt, just quite unpleasant. Because when you're pulling out all of these things, and I often give like a texture or a smell or a sensation as I'm doing it, it was like lifting up your shoe that you're like, oh my gosh, look at my shoe, my trainer, like I'm moving and like I'm having a great time. And then turning over your shoe and going, oh no, I've got dog poo on it. Oh no, this kind of like changed the way that I feel about this now. So I looked at my gaps, and instead of doing something which I may have done before, which is like, oh no, it'll be fine, or I'll deal with that later, I welcome them all to the table. Come on then, let's have a conversation about this. It felt like one of those American chat shows, you know, like Jerry Springer or Ricky Lake, when it's like, let's bring them out. And I did. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, what is this going to be? So maybe you want to do that. Maybe you want to take this month of November, starting tomorrow, to explore. And explore maybe with me. We could work together for a month ahead and like really do this and see what's going on. Number 2, I committed to being on the path no matter what. And this, for me, this commitment of being on the path is not about saying, I'm going to tick these 3 boxes every single day and I'm going to build a daily habit and I'm going to do these things perfectly. My life at this age and stage is not in a position to necessarily be predictable. And when I thought about the actual actions that I managed to complete every single day, was like feeding my children, getting them where they need to be, and showering. And I'm sure there's other things, and like loving my family, but there are so many other, I'm sure there are more things. Are they only the 3 things that I can do each and every day? I'm sure there's many, like brush my teeth, lock the door, you know, all of it. But throughout that, it meant that if I was committed to being on this journey, it meant that I was going to have some days where I couldn't do all the things. It meant that I was going to have to be kind and gentle and compassionate with myself if there were some days where I couldn't go as fast. Equally, if I was going to be committed, I was going to say to myself, those days where I felt like I was cooking on gas, I was going to go for it like, I don't know, like, I can't think of an analogy, with like Usain Bolt energy. Get out my way, I'm going to win this thing. And when I'm saying win this thing, I'm not doing this against other people, I'm doing it against myself. And I look at parenting, for example. I am committed to the long term of parenting my 2 children. Are there days when I don't do it well? Of course. Are there days where they don't do it well? Not at all. But definitely in terms of my parenting journey, there are days when, or maybe hours, let's say that, where I'm like, this is great, we're having a lovely time, we're so connected, really enjoying it. And there are some days where you think, where has this child come from? Because this is not the child that I felt like I had yesterday. We feel like we're in a different situation and we're not quite sure how to be with each other. Or sometimes you're just bloody tired. And all you want to do is to be left alone and sit in peace and watch something that you want to watch on the TV. So that has been the second thing. No matter what, no matter the twists and the turns and the pace and the rhythm, I am committed to being on this journey and I'm not going back. And number 3, each and every day I have spent time and focus and energy in a very unstructured way sometimes. I'd love to say, yes, every night I wrote these 3 things down that I'm super grateful for. I haven't, because sometimes there are those moments where I get into bed and everybody's fast asleep, and then as soon as you turn your light off, one of the children wake up. So like, I don't even have that kind of rhythm. But each and every day I make sure that I have spent 5 minutes thinking about where I'm going, what I'm doing, what I'm excited about, what this is all for, what the ripple effect of this new path is going to be. And sometimes that's enough, you know. You don't have to spend half a day meditating about it or do a 4-hour morning routine. You can literally say, do you know what? Between here, this walk, and sometimes I do it, between here and Waitrose, I'm going to think about this for 5 minutes. And I'm not going to listen to a podcast. I'm not going to distract myself. I'm simply going to think about my goal. Great. Done. It doesn't have to be complicated or structured or following a formula or anything like that. So, my question is, what is next month holding for you? What do you want to create? Where do you want to make some moves? How do you want to play the game of November? If you would appreciate 30 days of support, you can come and work with me on my monthly moves plan. This is not, and I'm always worried about the way I say this is not for the faint-hearted. What I mean is, this is for people who want to play, who want to go, do you know what? I'm in. Let's see what we can do. Let's see the moves we can make. Let's get this party started. And again, I'm not greeting it going, hi, okay, this has to be the most perfect, excellent coaching experience where everything has to be perfect and you as the client have to be perfect. Like, I'm not doing that. I am matching you where you're at and going, yeah, let's play. Tell me what you want. Tell me how you want to do this. And I will support you and I will match you and work with you. And we'll be in that beautiful, almost like those power walkers, you know, the ones who are like, I've got my visor, I've got my bum bag, and I will be doing that with your dreams in November, day after day after day. And the results at the end of 30 days are pretty amazing, the possibilities. If you want to find out more, DM me. Thanks for listening. I love you lots. And see you later. Bye.